Okay, welcome everybody. It is December 14th, 2020, 7 p.m., and it is the Lake Bluff Board of Trustees meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ankman.
Here.
Trustee Sherlock.
Here.
Trustee Dewart.
Here.
Trustee Markey.
Here.
Trustee Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Toll.
All right, when we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
to
to
the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have the consideration of the minutes of the November 23rd, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ankerman. And do I have a second?
Second.
A second, Ms. Markey. Are there any corrections, additions?
Madam President, I sent around. Madam President, I sent around earlier this afternoon, or rather, Carol sent around amended minutes. I just want to be sure everybody understood there were some typos that were included in that, and hopefully everybody had a chance to peek at those.
Okay. You ready? If there are no additional comments or please, roll call, please.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlock.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Okay, at this time, the village board sets aside 15 minutes for public comment on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have anybody, Drew, that has expressed an interest in speaking?
Nobody is present at Village Hall, Madam President. No one has raised their hand yet, but certainly any of the attendees that are on the call or participating in this Zoom meeting can certainly raise their hands and can be recognized.
Okay, yes. All right, then, if not, how is Jerry's audio coming along here? Is he ready yet?
We can give him a try right now real quick.
All right, why don't you try that, because then I'd like to have set the order of the meeting. I'd like to move number 13, which is a proclamation in his honor. I'd like to move that up to the front.
Jerry, can you hear us now?
I can hear you through my phone.
You there, Jer?
Yeah.
Jerry, what's your phone number?
847
337.
333
Yeah, if you want to mute
847
your
337 3688.
yeah, if you want to mute your Zoom meeting, we'll turn on your phone instead. Okay.
The host would like you to.
And then you're going to have to hit *9, I believe. Sorry, *6 to unmute on that phone.
Are we working yet?
I don't believe so, Madam President.
All right. Shall I allow you guys to fiddle with that, and we'll move on, and then let me know when Jerry is available? Okay. That works. Because it's okay. So we'll hold that just for a few minutes, and hopefully the technical difficulties will be solved. So we'll proceed to item 6A, which is the warrant report for November 24th to December 14th. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved by Mr. Toll. Do I have
Second.
a second by Mr. Meyer? Expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $739,351.56 for November 24th to December 14th, 2020, right? The invoice register, as usual, shows checks with the status of open or paid. All checks with the status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with the status of paid are manual checks. All right. Are there any questions for the Director of Finance or the administration regarding anything in the warrant report? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustee Charlo.
Aye.
Trustee Stewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Okay, how are we, Glenn and Jerry, with the technology yet?
One moment.
Okay. Are we close?
Madam President, I apologize. I think we're getting a little bit closer, but we're working on a couple.
Okay, all right, well then I'm going to ask, as we wait for your go-ahead, ask for the village administrator's report for this evening.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 3 items showing on the agenda. We'll actually try to cover 5, if that's all right. But the first one is a request from the Lake Bluff Park District regarding the waiver of building permit fees associated with their planned armoring of Sunrise Beach. The Lake Bluff Park District is going to piggyback the work of the North Shore Water Reclamation District and take advantage of their pricing, their per unit pricing for adding stone south of the pump house facility to create a barrier, if you will, against the wave action and that's coming in and taking sand with it. I know the Park District is waiting to deposit a good amount of sand on the beach and wanted it to stay there. So that, again, they're going to piggyback the North Shore Water Reclamation District's project and are asking for a waiver of fees. And the amount of the waiver is in the realm of fees that have been waived by the board and that they exceed $1,000. In fact, it's just over $6,600 for the associated with the cost of the project itself of $210,000 and change. That's it in a nutshell. I know that there's a letter in the packet describing the request. They also make note of some pending, I guess, a pending question to the village about participating financially in this or other improvements down at the beachfront, and that's kind of teed up in the letter, but I presume that further would be, more information would be coming on that in the future. But tonight's question for you all solely deals with the permit fee waiver.
Okay, board, any comments, questions for Drew?
Are there any out-of-pocket costs that can be summarized so far or expected in the future?
As far as the future, that's uncertain, but unlikely, barring something unusual. At this point, the review of the permit has been in-house, so no third-party fees to date.
Okay, thank you.
This might tie into Barbara's question, but I noticed in the letter that they mentioned that they were requesting to waive permits, including any related technical reviews or attorney's fees. I don't remember in the past us kind of talking about that when we talk about waiving permits. Is that standard language, or is that something a little bit different, Drew?
That is how this is John Beeler's request. He's the new executive director. That's how he chose to word it. There hasn't been any legal work associated with this inquiry to date. But that would be a third party that the village would engage that had the boards, as the board has done in the past where you've all requested that any pass-through fees be handed off to the petitioner or applicant, that would qualify as one.
Okay, thank you.
I believe I have also a question regarding that the permit fee. From what I understand, the permit fee is typically used to also repair roads. For example, the fee is used to repair what the community will endure during the construction process. In this case, we're going to move there will be about 100 feet worth of parking lot being created. So I would assume this is going to be a lot of rocks being moved around. How much damage do you think will happen on the village property due to that construction? And do you think that the $6,000 would be enough to repair what could happen to the community?
So this seems to be all coupled. All these projects that are happening right now have largely involved the same contractor and a lot of the same timing, right? This is the North Shore Water Reclamation District awarded their project to Keno Construction. They are the Beans contractor doing the work at 718 Mountain. The village board approved a license agreement at the November 23rd meeting associated with that. And so there's a lot of coordination, which I think is good for the village, in that there's fewer contractors impacting the roadways as opposed to just one. To answer your question, it's very difficult to give you a direct answer, Trustee Charlot, about the exact impact. But they are, in terms of method and means, it will be by utilizing village roadways to access the site. Sadly, should the Park District's contractor do damage, the truth of the matter is $6,000 does not go very far in terms of repairing roadways. That's the truth of the matter. Regardless of the impacts, but I think I can safely say, and I'll defer to Village Engineer Jeff Hansen about the actual impacts that he would suspect from this type of work, but that this scale of this project is smaller than what the North Shore Water Reclamation District is doing, and magnitude smaller than what the Beans are doing. So in the big scheme of things, this is probably the smallest project in the scale. Nonetheless, it's the same contractor taking largely the same roadways to get to the site. Jeff, I don't know if you have any more to add to that.
I would just add that they're not going to be stopping and backing on Sunrise. They're going to pull down the driveway forward, turn around at the bottom, come back out, and where they stop and they're turning while they're standing still. That's the area that I think gets the most immediate impact, which is what we were concerned about with the Beans project and backing down Lily and Dell. So I don't think you'll see anything right away. Will it take a year off the road's life at the end? It may or may not. It's impossible to tell right now.
Thank you.
And like with all the projects that the Park District or other government and public institutions do, this benefits the village way beyond the $6,000 contribution towards repairing the roads. So that's why we consider these waivers in the first place.
And Drew, didn't we discuss at the meeting for the North Shore Water Reclamation District, ultimately, if that road were in need of repair, what entity would be responsible for funding that?
Yeah, I think almost the next day after those comments were made by the village board, there were markings on the pavement that the North Shore Water Reclamation District was getting pricing from their contractors to do patchwork on the road leading down the hill. Jeff, I know you had contact and communication with North Shore Water Reclamation District staff on that. Do you have more to add on that?
Yeah, just that, we offered to include their patching, at our, in our regular contract, and they would pay us back essentially for any work done in that street. We usually get a pretty good price, so we've offered that to them, and they haven't decided if they want to take advantage of that at this point or not.
But they did mark the area for quantities for pricing purposes.
Well, I think I've got a comment. I think certainly one of the most important assets that we have in Lake Bluff is our lakefront, and one of the most important partnerships that we have is that between the village and the Park District. And I would certainly support that we give some assistance to the Park District in this modest way of $6,000. I would ask, I think as we have done before, that if we have any out-of-pocket expenses associated with the project, that they reimburse us for those out-of-pocket expenses. The two governmental entities, that being us, the Village of Lake Bluff, and the Park District, will not entirely coterminous or largely coterminous. Many of the concerns that I think we have had when we haven't granted such waivers are absent here. So I'd support the waiver with the asterisk, of course, of reimburses for anything that's actually out of pocket, and certainly would look forward to continuing working with the Park District to deal with what is a big problem down at the beach in the best way that we can.
I would second that as well.
Agreed.
Anyone else?
I will follow that comment as well. I mean, I'm a little bit worried that the cost could actually escalate, but I will also, I mean, it's our interest as a community to protect and support and protect the Park District in managing our beach. So I will follow Trustee Myers and Trustee Enkelman and Trustee Award.
So do we need to, is it necessary to add any amendment to this to address any out-of-pocket cost? If that's the direction we're headed?
My understanding of Trustee Meyer's motion, taking it as a motion, was to authorize the waiver with the condition that any out-of-pocket cost would be passed on to the Park District, and that Trustee Inkerman seconded that motion.
Very good.
So moved if there's any ambiguity.
And seconded if there's any ambiguity.
All right. Motion carried and seconded. This is a roll call. And for this one, let's do a roll call.
Trustee Dort.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Charla.
Aye.
The only thing I would add, if at some point in time other discussions need to happen between the Park District and the village regarding larger costs for the beach and its project, that should be a separate discussion. Because to be totally honest, we are not coterminous with the Park District. Lake Bluff, there is a large segment of approximately 2,200 households that are in the unincorporated area that are not in the village of Lake Bluff. So, you know, any additional costs to that the village may help with, and that would be, I think, the discussions in the future on a variety of issues. We need to be mindful that monies could be considered a double tax for the residents of Lake Bluff. So I think we certainly approve this. We have historically waived that. But I think any other discussions will need to be very deliberate and thoughtful as we may move forward, because there are a lot of issues there. Okay, Glenn, are y'all ready?
Yes, Madam President, I think we are.
Okay, well, at this point, okay, did you have a couple of more things, Drew, didn't you?
I do, but they can wait.
All right, that's good. Let's do this because I don't want to keep Jerry waiting. Anything on this one? Okay, I'd like to skip to number 13, and this is a resolution honoring the public service of Fire Department member Gary KLUCHKA. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Dewitt, second by Mr. Meyer. Jerry KLUCHKA has served the community as a volunteer firefighter for 35 years. Because his service and devotion to the village and its fire operations have proven to be an enormous benefit to the village and its residents in many, many ways, it is recommended that Mr. KLUCHKA's service is memorialized via a resolution of the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. We have a resolution here, which I would like to read, and I would have to remark that I think it is a great honor to honor Jerry. Jerry, remember you were in the 8th grade when I first started at Lake Bluff. And the 35 years that not only you, but I think we are honoring your 35 years of service. We're also honoring your entire family, which is the premier firefighting family of Lake Bluff. So I will say, whereas Jerry L. KLUCHKA has loyally and faithfully served the Lake Bluff Fire Department and citizens of Lake Bluff for 35 years. And whereas beginning December of 1985, Jerry L. KLUCHKA has served in a variety of capacities, including firefighter, emergency medical technician, lieutenant, confirmed space technician, trench rescue technician, and underground rescue technician. And whereas in February of 2006, Jerry L. KLUCHKA assumed the duties of captain for the Lake Bluff Fire Department. And whereas through the commitment of Jerry L. KLUCHKA with the Lake Bluff Fire Department provides services and programs to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the village of Lake Bluff. Whereas Jerry L. KLUCHKA is a public safety professional who has demonstrated outstanding commitment to the village of Lake Bluff and its residents for 35 years, including participation in several hundred training hours for firefighting, as well as emergency medical technician, confined space, trench and underground rescue, throughout which he has maintained a positive attitude and sense of purpose, fitting a committed professional. Whereas Jerry L. KLUCHKA has been supported by his family throughout his 35 years of service to the village, by his wife, Rebecca, and then being joined in this service to the village over the years by his sons, Timothy, Matthew, and Russell. And he continues to be one of the finest examples of a committed professional to protect the health, safety, and welfare to the citizens of the village of Lake Bluff. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Bluff, County of Lake, and State of Illinois, that the Village of Lake Bluff hereby recognizes Jerry L. KLUCHKA for his numerous, significant, and outstanding contributions to the Lake Bluff Fire Department since 1985, and such recognition and the gratitude of the Village of Lake Bluff be publicly expressed. Jerry L. KLUCHKA for his service to this community, that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this proceeding, and an executed copy of the resolution be delivered to Jerry L. KLUCHKA, dated this 14th day of December, 2020. Jerry, you are beyond thanks. Yeah, you know, if you want to talk about a absolute dedicated professional, no questions asked, anytime, any day. But not only you, the entire family. As I said, you are the first fire family of Lake Bluff. And I mean that sincerely, okay?
Yeah, well,
Thank you so very much for everything.
Thank you for the recognition. And it's been a pleasure, been an honor to be involved with this organization and in this town. We've got so many good people through the years, and we've watched a lot of things change in town. You know, at least I have been here for a long time. But it's easy to do because we've had so many good people with us, and to bring my sons up through it makes me proud. They've all become full-time firefighters in Lake Forest and North Chicago, and carrying through with their careers in the fire service, as well as still serving in Lake Bluff. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of hard work along the way, but a lot of fun. and a very enjoyable time. These times that we're going through now makes it tough on all of us to be as active and do as much stuff as we'd like to do. But we'll hang in there and we'll keep working on it. Hopefully we'll get through these times and things will get back closer to normal anyway. And I'll continue to do what I can as my age creeps up on me. I'm kind of slowing down a little bit, but we'll do as much as we can and keep serving as long as we can. But again, I thank you guys for all your support. The village board has always been great supporters of the fire department and our personnel, so which has also made it easier to do the job and to be involved with the organization. So I thank all of you very, very much.
Thank you, Jerry. There we go.
Thank you all very, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam President, you still need a vote, a roll call on that.
I need a roll call for that vote. Thank you. Yes.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Charla.
Aye.
Trustee Dort.
Aye.
Okay. All right, Mr. Irwin, would you like to continue your bullet points there?
Yes, thank you. The second item is another fee waiver request. This is item 7B on the agenda. It is a request from residents John Schilling and Ed Fiorentino looking for a waiver of fees in the amount of $39,990 associated with work to protect their shoreline. It's a stretch of the village's shoreline that has been very troubled over the last several years with its high water levels. And they began work out there some point. We had been in communication with them and reviewed plans and were prepared to issue a permit. Subsequently found out the work was done without the permit being pulled. Had conversations with them about our process and what was necessary to secure the permit and get that tidied up. And those conversations led to the request that's in front of you. There's a letter there from Mr. Schilling and Mr. Fiorentino regarding their request. I know they're here tonight on the call and would like to share with the board some information regarding their request. So John, I know you're there. John?
Do you hear us now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. There we go. Sorry, I wasn't getting the unmute. Anyway, well, first of all, thank you very much to all the members of the Board of Trustees. I'm not sure if Ed is on. I don't see him, but maybe he is as well. Before I jump in, I'll see if he's able to be unmuted. I'm sure he would like to participate.
Yep, I found him.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I am here, but I don't know if you can.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Ed.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Maybe Ed, I'll kick off, and then you can add color commentary if that works. Or
sure.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, again, thank you to the members of the board. We really appreciate the time to come in and speak. Just to kind of build on Drew's initial introduction, as I think he alluded to, we had, over the last literally 4 years, have been working very actively to address what I would characterize as pretty major erosion problems on the beachfront near our houses. We live at 600 Lansdowne and 611 Lansdowne. And as you probably all are aware, it requires a tremendous amount of work. We've had people from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Illinois EPA, Lake County, the Village of Lake Bluff, many different groups participating in both the permitting, the assessment, the sort of the design work, all of which was sort of conducted literally over 4 years. We actually, as Drew alluded to, it turned out the work was completed before the permit was pulled. I think it's fair to say, neither Ed nor I was aware of this until actually the end of the process, I think literally the last day of the project. And I think, frankly, that piece was an oversight on the part of on the part of the contractor that we had worked with, Gillen. Having said that, both Gillen and AECom had, or at a minimum, or AECom, Bill Weaver had many conversations with the village, and but they were not aware. I think that Bill at least was not aware that the permit hadn't been pulled, because I think in most cases this is sort of a perfunctory process. At that time, when they pulled it, or when they went to pull it, they were informed that there was a large fee, effectively a 3% fee associated with the permit, which at least in their telling of, at least from what they described to us, this was far in excess of anything they've seen in the past. And I'll get into that in a moment. But so part of what we were hoping to have a conversation about is what the norms are in this respect, and then we were hoping to petition the board for some accommodation here, because part of what we'll come to in a moment is that the rationale, as we understood it, and I heard it as part of the water reclamation discussion, is to address the damage to roads and the use of infrastructure in the village. So maybe to that very point, let me step back and describe a little bit of kind of what the project was all about. So as I alluded to, the lakefront near our house actually has a ravine that drains about 524 acres of land throughout Lake Bluff. And there were basically, I would say, two overarching objectives of this work. Number one was to stabilize the bluff and the lakefront from persistent erosion. As I think everyone is aware, there's just massive erosion as a result of very high lake levels right now. But second, related to that, it's also to stabilize and support the outflow of the ravine, which drains, as I mentioned, about over 500 acres of land in Lake Bluff. And so all of that work has now been done. And so at least from our vantage point, we view this as obviously there's benefit to our property, but also to everything upstream, which incorporates a huge amount of land in Lake Bluff. And so anyway, as we look at the fees themselves, we've had some opportunity to speak to Drew. In that conversation, what he had suggested was that in both a conversation with me as well as a conversation with Bill Weaver, who's the engineer for AECom, that the part of the justification for the 3% fees that are customary in the existing code is, and by the way, that code references both buildings and structures, not work from water, but that it's, again, to address any concerns and damage to roads and other infrastructure. Turns out we did 100% of the work by barge. Everything was brought in from Lake Michigan. All the stone was brought in from Lake Michigan. The heavy equipment was all brought in from Lake Michigan. There's no use of, literally no use of land or roads, and therefore no damage associated with that. And so anyway, Drew's suggestion was that we go to a 1% fee. Just as a couple of other points of reference, in other areas up and down the North Shore, we surveyed a number of other contractors, as well as had conversations with Bill Weaver, who's our contractor, who does, I think they've worked on something like 40% of the land between here and between Chicago and the northern border of Illinois. The typical fee is between $500 and $1,500. And as I think you all discussed before, it's often the case when there are out-of-pocket expenses that the homeowner covers those as well. I'm not aware of any of those, although certainly if there are out-of-pocket expenses, then I think it's fair to say we'd be comfortable covering them. And the other maybe last point, or second to last point, is that there are other cases where at least we're aware that this fee has not been charged, certainly not the 3% fee. We're not aware of any of those. And there are certainly other cases, that we're aware of where no such fees were charged at all. I think in many cases, actually, that's a rational thing. I think if you were to speak to some of the contractors, they would tell you that the village does not want, it's not in their interest to permit these things because, in many cases, they're very, very complex engineering issues, and it introduces a liability that the village may not want. In addition to that, again, in one conversation, I think there are others who dial into this call, they've referenced fees from a different portion of the building code related to stream bank and shoreline restorations, which is more akin to this. And so I guess our general petition is that we think that we'd like to have a substantially reduced fee that's in line with the work that's been done, and that represents, I think, the spirit of the existing building code. So I don't know, Ed, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you summarized it very well, John. We just really feel like this fee is meant for buildings and infrastructure, and this was entirely a project accessed by water, so there's no road damage. And I mean, our engineer can't find a village or a town that would charge anything near 3% for this type of work. They quoted numbers between $500 and $1,500 that towns would collect for this kind of thing. So I just, we just can't see our way through how 3% could even be in the realm of possibility when there's no damage to roads or infrastructure from the town. So.
And I think, honestly, a benefit, sort of an enduring benefit to the town that effectively, we've borne the cost of, I think most notably related to the ravine work that's been done.
Just, if I may, Madam President, just a couple points of clarification. That's all right. And John, and you guys are finished with your presentation or comments? I don't want to get ahead of myself.
No, unless there are other questions. But yeah, I think that's probably the fair initial summary. Yes.
Okay. Just to clarify, so I did have a conversation with John about this when he submitted his request originally, and I didn't necessarily suggest that he seek 1%, but I did say, and the arguments that were made in the correspondence, I thought that was the strongest argument to make. The idea that the village, inherits or puts itself in a place of exposure with new liability with these types of improvements is simply not the case. I think the board's familiar with that concept. That's been talked about numerous times. Secondly, the idea that other fees are set, or I guess other communities establish their development and building and construction permit fees. Everybody does it differently. As was pointed out, Lake Bluff charges 3% for cost of construction. Others don't. Many communities charge 1%. Everybody sets their fees to accomplish certain objectives and revenue goals. The village did move its fee structure years ago to try to capture an additional revenue to try to keep up with the ever-increasing cost to maintain our roadway system. And that's certainly true of that additional 2% on top of the 1% that the village was previously charging. The village's construction codes and building permit codes do speak to structures while they are not necessarily a house or a gazebo. These are engineered designs and of sums of many parts that certainly qualify as structures under our code. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Board, I'll open it up to you all. Discussion purposes.
I have a question for Peter Friedman. You have obviously quite a bit of experience with other communities around us. Do you have any input as to what other communities would charge for a permit of this nature?
Yeah, I would agree with Drew that it's very municipality specific. So I can't give you 3% is not unheard of. We're home rule, so there's no authority question here. It is really the 3% is in our code. Structures are structures. They're broadly defined in our zoning code as not just principal structures. So it really is a policy decision about, in this situation, do you feel the 3% is correct? You have the authority to do it. You have the authority not to do it. But I agree with Drew's assessment that there's no, it ranges. Certainly, I don't think I've seen any above 3%, and Drew may but I don't think I've seen one above 3%.
No, we did not survey other communities, Trustee Toll, to find out what they were doing in this regard. It varies so much, and so we certainly could. If you want us to drill down, we can go back and do that. I think the difficulty with that is, again, each community has, captures revenue in different areas, right? And so I don't know if that'd be a complete picture of how the systems are designed and what their goals are. But we can certainly go do that work if you like. I guess another nuance I'd like to mention about this, unlike the previous request for the fee waiver, this is by private property owners. Certainly the beach and the coastline in Lake Bluff is iconic, but this is all private property, including the ravine coming through there that was discussed by John. And so that makes this unusual. I in the 13 years that I've been here, I don't recall a private property owner other than a non-for-profit like Bernie's Book Bank or a church seeking a request. Certainly local government agencies have. That's the closest I could recall. I picked up the phone and called the former village engineer, George Russell, who had a couple decades on me in service to the village of Lake Bluff, and asked him in all his years, did he recall any requests from private property owners, and he recalled one, and which ultimately resulted in the village's code being amended. It dealt with somebody seeking a permit to replace all their windows in their home, and for the cost associated with that, and the board ultimately thought and I should say, and the work associated with that in terms of level of review and involvement, the village opted to create a set fee structure for certain types of activities like window replacement or replacing a water heater or something simple like that, to make it more straightforward and less costly for simpler projects of that nature. But it's been some time and wasn't, in the last 13, that was at some point in the last 30 years that occurred. So.
One other question, maybe it's toward Mike Croak, but you might be able to answer, Joe. Do we charge a 3% permit fee for hardscaping or retaining walls?
Mike, you want to talk about that?
Sure, as soon as I can find the right button to unmute myself. Okay. Patios and that type of hardscape are on the list of things that are calculated at the 1% rate. I think retaining walls are not on any of those lists of things calculated at the lesser rate, so they go at the 3%.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a comment also in that respect, if I can. The argument, I feel a little bit uncomfortable having a private party as opposed to another government in the village asking for the fee to be removed. The argument I would like to make is if I were to live on the edge of a village, I could argue that I have to pay for a fee, but yet I might not use any roads in Lake Bluff because I live on the edge of a village. So I feel a little bit uncomfortable with that argument presented by these two gentlemen.
Mr. Schilling and Mr. Fiorentino?
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Drew,
Yes.
Drew, can I just, Regis, were you done?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just was going to ask, it sounded like from your previous comments, Drew, when you were clarifying the 1% conversations, there was conversation prior to any construction happening that a permit was necessary.
Yeah, and they made application. I mean, we had numerous conversations leading up to this. We were aware of the erosion that was taking place. There was conversations, and they had submitted an application.
Okay, thanks.
Was it the homeowners that submitted the application or the contractor?
Jeff Hansen, the village engineer, was, I think, or was it Jeff Shank? Mike, do you know? I think it was Jeff Shank that was processing it. I thought it was submitted by, was it Gillian?
I think Jeff Hansen was working with the most. Gillian is probably the most likely guess, the contractor, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, it was Gillum Marine. Jeff Shank was processing it. I have an email where they said they had sent it in. I didn't find the piece of paper. Jeff, works in the morning. These plans were done and this permit was set up over a year ago, and I think the delay was just scheduling the barge contractor. So there was a little bit of a time delay between that and when they started, but I believe it was submitted by the contractor.
Right. Well, it's my understanding that, if the contractor submitted it, it would be reasonable to think that the contractor would pick it up. But should that oversight occur, I believe it's the homeowner who would still bear the ultimate responsibility for making sure that permit was paid for and picked up before work began. Is that true, Drew?
I mean, that's where it stops with it rests with the homeowner at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. And if I were, working on my own home and either, chose to not get a permit or forget to do a permit and it came to light, what would be the result of me performing work and even completing it and not having a permit?
So, yeah, technically the village's codes spell out that if you are found to be doing construction without a permit, the code prescribes that when it's discovered and the work goes through the process, that you actually have to pay 3 times the permit fee amount. That's the way it's set up to encourage people to get permits in the future, to be punitive in that regard.
We wouldn't want to set a precedent of letting the work be done and then afterward, collecting or maybe not collecting the fee, or having the homeowner negotiate, if you will, for a lesser fee, because that's the power that we have in terms of, the work can't get done until the permit's picked up, and the permit can't be picked up until the fees are paid. And so we have a little bit of a mix-up in the timing, and so for the negotiation to take place after the fact, it's almost like, we don't have that power to say you can't pull a permit, you can't do the work. So, asking whether it was intentional or not, but asking for forgiveness instead of permission is kind of the way it looks. But whether it was an oversight or not, still it sets a precedent of the work being done first, and then asking for the waiver is not a good precedent. There's an order in which things are supposed to happen, and inherent penalties for when those things don't happen in the right order. And I also wanted to just say that the stabilization work that was done, it appears that it was a known factor when the properties were purchased, and so maybe the degree to which the work needed to be done may not have been known specifically, but it seems like that variable was probably factored into the price of, purchasing this, and it's something that, the resident who purchases that land would kind of factor into. And the wording of the letter says that the village was contemplating the assessment of a 3% fee when it was a stated percentage for that building permit. It wasn't that we just decided, this would be a good opportunity to collect 3% in this particular case. It wasn't something that was newly contemplated. It was something that was on the books. Is that correct?
Yeah, this has been on the books for some time. I will say that there is the nature of these, the frequency of projects of this nature there seems to be, a lull in time, and then there's projects of this nature usually when the water's up again. Every 10 years or 20 years you see projects like this come in number. So this is one of those times, and there's more coming. I was talking with the village engineer about this in the last few days, and there's several projects in the pipeline that are coming very similar in nature.
Well, if you look at a number of the issues that we have with certain areas of town flooding, if I were in a location that happened to flood, certainly all the water that comes to my property that floods, it's the result of draining water from perhaps hundreds of acres, and it ends up on my property. And I think the argument that, that land takes water from 524 acres, while it may be true, it doesn't mean that 524 acres of property owners should subsidize the work. So there's just a number of reasons why at this point I don't see that the application for asking for a waiver is something that I would be positive toward at this point.
Is it, I don't know when the appropriate time is for us to sort of add additional comments, but I mean, obviously the village board should speak, but I'm sure that Ed would also like to add some comments, but when that time comes, we'd love to have the opportunity to.
All right, let's go through with what the comments are from the trustees, and then we'll come back to you folks for response.
Thanks.
Shirley.
Madam President, I'd be happy to comment next. And I think the first thing I want to say to both Mr. Fiorentino and Mr. Schilling is I certainly sympathize with the situation of having to pay $40,000. Nobody wants to have to do that, and nobody likes to have a surprise. And you're not necessarily to blame for that if this was in the hands of the contractors. That being said, in government, we have difficult decisions to make. And we do have our ordinances, we have what we've set into place, and we have the precedents that we carry when we make decisions like this. And this is a situation in which I think the precedent is pretty clear. This does not involve any public land ownership. It doesn't involve any nonprofit land ownership. We are in a situation in which we're dealing solely with private land. And we don't have the precedent really to be waiving what is a tax that has been well-reasoned, a fee that's been well-reasoned by the board, passed into law in the village of Lake Bluff, and it's made based not only on these issues of, what's the wear on the road, but and other facilities, but based on how we put together our entire economic program, essentially. We do have this fee and it's in place. And I think I have to echo many of the comments of trustee and finance chair Ankerman, in the sense that certainly when the properties were purchased, the market, any free market would have built in to the price these issues. And it's also the situation here, the asking for forgiveness instead of permission, I think has to factor into the decision. And with as much sympathy as I have, I don't see this as a situation where we'd make any kind of exception. And indeed, I following this up, I have one question for Drew that really goes to kind of the equities of the situation, which is, Drew, how did we discover the situation was at hand, that no permit was pulled?
Mike, you want to take that?
Sure. I happened to be kayaking on the lake on the weekend and saw the work going on. And the next Monday morning, I asked Jeff Hansen if the permit had been issued for that project.
Well, I think I come back to this addressed to both Mr. Fiorentino and Mr. Schilling. I'm sorry about the situation. I sympathize with you. I think the fee needs to be paid, and I think the surprise that you're suffering is the result of your contractor falling short on what they needed to do. And it's a tough decision, but I think that's the right decision based on our ordinances, based on the precedent that we have. And I'm sorry about that, but that's where I'm at.
Right. Thank you, Bill. Other comments?
I think I'd just like to add on to that, Madam President, if I could, that you know, when a homeowner does their house, like I did a massive renovation on my house, and I pulled a permit for it, and I think the oversight, again, like Bill said, we sympathize with the oversight, but it could be a lot worse for you guys in the sense that it could be 3 times that amount, which of course, no one wants to do that. We just want to rectify the situation. But it goes back to Barbara's comment about asking for permission or asking for forgiveness. So clearly, it's great that the beach is being fixed and improved, but there's a precedent that we work through, and I think it's important that we follow it.
At the risk of restating, I'll just say that the most disconcerting part of all of this is not following through on the permit process, which was initiated between the village and a professional contractor who certainly would have understood and the necessary or the need for the permit, and it would seem to me would have ensured that that the contractor's clients understood that there was a permit fee, not a not insignificant permit fee that would be part of the cost roll-up as part of the project costs, presuming that the contractor was going to be responsible for obtaining the permit and paying the village as opposed to having the clients pay the village directly. It's disappointing for sure, but it's disappointing that a professional organization didn't fulfill these necessary responsibilities. I'll, without opening up another can of worms, but I'm presuming that we're not, at least tonight, contemplating the punitive action for the penalty for this, and we're leaving this with just the stated amount. Is that correct?
That's certainly how staff is presenting it, yes.
Okay.
Drew, following up on Trustee Dewart's question, and maybe this is a question for you and maybe it's a question for Peter, do we have the jurisdiction to assess the penalty if there were to be a penalty on the contractor in some amount and not on the homeowners?
So the way I would phrase it is it's the same issue as the underlying fee. The ultimate responsibility is the property owner. It's certainly appropriate for the village to seek the fee or the fine from the contractor. To the extent that the contractor does not or will not pay, then the village will have the decision about whether or not to continue to try to enforce the code and seek the money from the property owner. So it's just a matter of, almost prosecutorial discretion, Bill, as to who we want to enforce it against and if we want to continue to enforce it if the contractor fails to comply.
Thank you, Peter.
And I would say that I'm certainly comfortable with assessing the stated 3% without pursuing any other action, presuming that, as Bill and as Mr. Friedman have indicated, that the village is paid on a timely fashion.
I have one further concern, and Barbara touched on it, but I would not want to set a precedent for the future of having builders and homeowners be able to negotiate the impact that their projects have on village infrastructure. I mean, I put a small piece of fence up and got a permit. What actual impact was there on village streets because of that project? Very little to none. So, I just don't want to I don't want every builder and every homeowner that's doing a project to come before us to try to negotiate how much impact they're having on village infrastructure. So, but I do agree with all the other comments made by the trustees. So, that as well.
I'd agree, Aaron.
Are there any other additional comments from any of the trustees? All right. If not, then Mr. Schiller,
Ca-
Mr.
ca-
Fiorentino. would
Trustee,
you have-
I'm sorry, Village President O'Hara, Mr. Fiorentino's had his hand up. I just want to make sure he's.
Yeah, I'm going back to them if
Okay,
you just
okay, thank you.
interrupted me.
I apologize.
Thank you. Okey doke. All right. Gentlemen, do you have something that you would like to add?
Ed, do you want to start?
Yeah, I just, so we applied for the permit. The fact that the contractor didn't pick it up, I get it's our ultimate responsibility, but I just need to emphasize we took all the steps, right? And we're finding out about this like a week ago, right? So this is all just been laid on us. And I would also say that the interpretation of the 3% in our read of the code doesn't apply to this project. There's another part of the code that talks about shoreline. So I guess my question for all of you is, when was the last time, if ever, that this 3% was applied to a shoreline project from a private homeowner? Because we're under the understanding it's never been applied.
I know.
True?
I know that the most recent project, the Beans project, that's all part of their considerations with this, and that is private work. There are, I don't know if Jeff or Mike, you can think of other initial ones. That's the most, again, when I made comments earlier, there's been other projects over time, but they're far and few. I mean, this is kind of the most current flurry of projects that are happening. I don't know, Mike or Jeff, you have other examples that come to mind. I'm trying to think of other structures that are been built, whether they be decks or other shoreline improvements that come to your recollections.
I can't think of any that have been in my time here that would be equal to this. You know, sometimes there's a project with a few elements and might have a little bit of, like bringing a storm sewer to the bottom to the lake and putting some rocks around when the storm sewer comes out. That's generally charged as a plumbing permit. But as far as massive shoreline, restoration projects, we just don't have that in the past few years.
On the face of the building permit, does it address fees at all in terms of, elements, or, is there a publicly available fee schedule?
The fee schedule is in our ordinance, which is available online. The face of the building permit application just asks for the value of construction, and then we calculate the fees as staff with that information.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, in your experience.
As pointed out, I think that we discussed this actually with previously with the village. My understanding is, again, all of this has just sort of emerged in the last week. Maybe before I go to that, I do think that probably the kind of, the white heart aspect of this is relevant. I mean, because I don't think that we tried to pursue this in bad faith. There have been literally, according to both our engineer as well as the contractor that's worked, there have been many conversations about the permitting. Obviously, we were unaware of it. So I don't think that, from a precedent standpoint, I don't think that we have a bad precedent to worry about, because this wasn't any sort of, initiative that was below the radar. It was one that had, many, like, I don't know if it was dozens, but it was many conversations between the village and at least our engineering firm, and I believe the contractor as well. So obviously there was an oversight on the part of the contractor. That's very unfortunate, but I don't think that I don't think it should create a precedent.
Well, I know that punitive things have been mentioned, but I don't know that anyone is advocating that any type of punitive, fee apply. I just wanted to.
We appreciate that. And I think, part of the reason that we brought this forward, we actually didn't propose a specific number, but rather it was a reflection of the conversation that we had with Drew, both that I had and also that our contractor had with Drew, who had suggested in our conversation one reasonable approach would be to propose a 1% fee, because that did reflect the spirit of the building code, frankly, that we just discussed a few minutes ago. These are incredibly atypical. It also, as Ed has pointed out, we have actually asked the contractor, we have asked the engineers. No one, literally none of them have seen this fee applied in any other similar circumstance, because the work is being done remotely. I appreciate that that's a judgment that you all have the right to make, but I think our view is that it's not in step with what historically has been done. We can't find a single precedent where it has been applied. I don't think it actually has yet been applied in the case that you just alluded to. It may be applied, obviously that's your discretion, but I don't believe it yet has been applied. And so part of what we're asking for is some commonality in approach that's consistent with both past precedent and and existing practices. So I think part of what's challenging for us is that at least all of the conversations we're having with our engineering firm, with the contractors, with other contractors who have done this work, is that what we're talking about here is just not consistent with the past. And again, it's up to you guys to decide that, but part of what we're trying to discuss is we'd like to come to something that we're not trying to negotiate it after the fact. That's not the spirit of it, but rather we're just trying to say what is appropriate and consistent with what has been done historically, and then what's consistent with the spirit of the regulations. And again, our understanding, as we just talked about in the prior session, was that it is intended to reflect the wear and tear on roads and buildings and structures, none of which is relevant here, because literally 100% of the work is done by water. So anyway, that's at least the spirit in which we're trying to approach this. We're not trying to be, take advantage of the situation, just the opposite. We try to be very transparent throughout it. We're just trying to come to something that feels equitable in light of the many considerations.
And I can add. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we can look back and we can also look forward. And I think that we can look forward to, if we were to waive this, to residents arguing that I live on the border of North Chicago, all my trucks came through North Chicago, my property should not have this fee because I'm not using any roads. And that type of, that type of argument can be, and what it's doing is it's actually taking more of staff time to review and consider all these ifs and whats and wherefores, so that we can then collect less fees, and so have more work, collect less fees. And I think it's important that, as you mentioned, Drew, that there's like a big picture when we budget and try to figure out how do we capture what is needed in terms of revenue to fund all these, capital projects and all these, services and things that we provide to the residents that are valuable and needed and expected. And, chipping away at this one piece is probably not a direction that we want to go, because what it will do is open up, or in the future, more creative and litigious arguments in that same direction.
And Trustee Ankerman, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And I think the more I've heard about this, and I'll direct this to Mr. Fiorentino and Mr. Schilling, and again, with every bit of sympathy that I can have, I think what you are suffering is the surprise. You are suffering the fact that you set a budget, you've paid money, you've gone through a lot of effort, and you're done with it, and you've suffered the surprise. And that's terrible. And that fault lies with the contractor. And my respectful suggestion to you, and we don't have the jurisdiction to order this, but my respectful suggestion is that the issue be taken to where the fault lies, which is with your contractor, who glaringly is not here tonight to speak about the situation. And say, I'm surprised, I'd like you to bear this burden. But I have to echo everything that Trustee Ankerman said, that we are opening up, and I think also Trustee Toll alluded to this earlier, this is opening up a can of worms as well, where there will be an appeal as to each and every permit, whether it be the fence or whatever it may be. I think we've taken up a lot of board time with this, but it's been an important discussion. I don't think we should be, indeed, even entertaining at all, the more I hear about this, these requests from private parties in this nature. I think I'd suggest respectfully take the problem to where the fault lies, which is the surprise, and it's with the contractor who dropped the ball.
If I may, just for
to respond to Trustee Myers, I do not agree with you. I think the responsibility of a party is yours, even though the contractor might not have done their job. And I would support Trustee Ankenman saying that, you know what, those permits are part of a grander insurance plan for the village to basically improve on our facilities and improve on the roads that might lead to these properties wherever Mr. Fiorentino and Mr. Schilling are living. One thing that leaves me a little bit confused, and I would like to have more feedback on that, that is the permitting process has an exception for shores, and I would love to know more about that. If I could ask Peter, Mr. Friedman. And that would be the only area of confusion I have. Otherwise, I'm not sympathetic to this cause.
My understanding is that there is that separate provision, but the provision on the 3%, this would apply to. I don't think there's an ambiguity, and it sounds like the village has never interpreted it that way.
And just, can I make a point on that, Peter?
The village administrator said, yeah.
Yeah, so the never, again, I've been here 14 years. I don't want to say what happened before that. In fact, I got a note from a member of staff saying back in 06, there was a permit for a fee that was less and was not assessed the 3% fee. I don't know, that predates me. I certainly haven't gone back and done an audit on every single building permit ever issued by the village over time. If the board is interested, we can go back and look more into that. Again, it's not a huge universe, but it's something that would take time. If you're interested, we can go back and look at that. We can go back and survey other communities and how they may manage shoreline projects. If you're interested, we can do those things, and you can revisit this request at a later date. I just want to throw that out there, that is something that's, exists as an alternative, is hitting the pause button on this and doing some more research. Although I suspect we would find that fees have been charged differently, interpreted over time by different staff members. That's just the nature of how it works, but that's something we can do.
I think in this case, if it was a negotiation prior to the work being done, I think maybe we could take that time to do it. And if the homeowner was willing to wait to do the work until that research was complete and we come to some sort of conclusion, then I think that would be an appropriate time to do it. But now, after the fact, I think we're past that point.
I certainly agree with Trustee Toll on that, and I do want to, take us back a minute or two. One point of clarification. I think Trustee Sherlow, you may have misunderstood me. I'm not advocating by any sense that we relieve this homeowner of what is the obligation under our ordinances. The point that I'm making, and one that I am trying to be helpful to Mr. Fiorentino and Mr. Schilling with, is that I think what they are suffering is surprise, and that surprise, at least on an equitable basis, lies at the blame at the feet of their contractor. So, I very, very much I advocate that the homeowner has to be responsible for this. But whatever your contracts say, I'd suggest, gentlemen, that you look to your contractor about them having potential responsibility for putting you in this position. That all being said, I think this has got to get paid to the village.
All right, have I heard from everybody? All right, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it is the wish of the village board not to grant the request. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Okay. There's how that is, folks. All right. And thank you, Mr. Schilling, Mr. Fiorentino, for your comments this evening. All right, Drew? Would you like to continue, please?
I don't know if Mr. Fiorentino or Mr. Schilling have any other comments. I'm sorry, I don't want to, their hands are showing as raised on the.
Are they? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that was.
No, we haven't. I'll make one final comment, which is that at a minimum, I hope that, it's obviously disappointing that we have this fee. It's particularly disappointing in light of the conversation that I had with Drew last week, where we were discussing a reduction in the fee for the very reasons that we discussed, that you discussed in the prior session. So obviously that's disappointing. I mean, the underlying justification of it feels out of step, but nonetheless, I understand your rationale. I think the other thing that is troubling, just to put it on the record, is that again, the past precedent has been, this is not consistent with past precedent, and I don't know what the future holds, but it certainly is not consistent with what's been done in the past. And so I understand the economic pressures that exist on local governments. I think they're certainly exacerbated in light of all of what's happening globally right now. That's clear. But I do think that it's important that various residents not be treated differently at different moments in time. And so, at a minimum, at least my request would be if there are differences that come to light, that you guys you consider that, notify us, and then second, I would also at least request that the rules that are being applied here be consistently applied prospectively as well.
I would sincerely hope that they are being applied consistently to everybody.
I'm just saying that, we know of many cases where that is not the case, and within the last 14 years. So I'd rather not get into the situation of trying to define where those were and were not applied, but I can tell you that there are quite a number of cases where that's the case. So, I mean, that's, unfortunately, that's a burden we have to bear, it appears, but it is the case that there's been a huge degree of variability in the standards that have been applied. I appreciate Trustee Meyer's comment about, I think the shortcoming here, and obviously, we're bearing the burden of that, and we appreciate the time that you guys have spent to consider it, but I would also, want to share with you that it is, I think this is out of step with what's been done in the past, and obviously that's very disappointing to us. So I don't know, Ed, if you have anything to add.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think that a lot of what's being said is, hey, you pulled the permit after the fact, and that's being used to apply an inequitable solution to this. And it's not consistent with precedent. So I think that sort of leaves us with, okay, well, maybe we need to do a bit more work on this, John and I. Maybe we need to get advice of outside counsel, and just really let's get the facts on the table, because there's a very strong sentiment from all of you that, hey, the permit wasn't pulled, so you get no mercy. It's your contractor, go to him. And the issue is more complex than that, because this has not applied to other people, and we're getting the inequitable solution because the permit wasn't pulled by our contractor. And so that forces us to think about other options here. So thanks for your time, but we're super disappointed because we don't feel like we've been treated fairly.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But the issue, as far as I can see, is the issue is there is a percentage fee that should always be consistently applied. We have assumed that has always been consistently applied, and you're telling us that it has not. The fee stands as is, but that does not mean that I will ask the administration to review if there are any so-called past instances where it has not been equitably applied. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Drew, would you continue, please?
Yeah, Jeff, are you ready to go? With regards to the FY21 capital improvement projects, this is the time of year where the village engineer comes in and provides updates to the village board, to the community at large, really, as to how we've been progressing with a variety of projects. This year has been unique, to say the least, in many regards, and obviously the pandemic, which has led to various slowdowns and a number of projects. But despite all that, I think we've made good progress, and I'll turn it over to Jeff.
As Drew mentioned, we put some projects on the shelf at the start of this fiscal year, and we have a little smaller number of projects, but I think that's really allowed us to focus on a couple of smaller things that I think are having a bigger impact than you might realize based on the size of the projects. So we'll kind of just go through ones that are completed, ones that are in progress, and the projects that are on hold here at the end. Water department, we replaced, I think it was 8 hydrants and about that equal number of valves over the summer. And we had a lot of valves exercised in 2019, didn't really reveal one area of concentrated problems. And we've also learned since then that a lot of the valves that worked in 2019, when you go back and touch them a second time, they don't work. So that's concerning that we have things that don't work, but it makes it easier for me to decide where to put the improvements throughout the village. Like I said, we added a bunch of valves in the North Terrace because we had issues where we really couldn't turn off any stretch of water main without turning off most of the neighborhood. The East and West Terrace, we did mostly hydrants, as a lot of that is original infrastructure, is 80 years old plus, so I feel better knowing that on most of the streets now we have at least one new hydrant in case something happens and, one of the older hydrants doesn't function. We know that we've got one that's brand new and shouldn't have any issues. So I hope we can keep doing more hydrant replacements, keep improving that situation, and keep getting our valving improved so that when we do have a water main break, we've had cases in the past where you go to shut a valve off and then that valve breaks. Now you have a broken water main and a broken valve, and you got to go find maybe 3 more valves to turn off the water, and you don't know if those are going to work. So this has helped our guys. I know, this winter's coming. There will be water main breaks, and when they're out trying to shut the water off at 2 in the morning, it's nice to know there's a valve you can count on that's new, and they can make it work. So that was a nice smaller project. As far as roads go, we did a bunch of resurfacing, as we do every year. We had a pretty good bid on the MFT resurfacing project, which allowed us to do some more storm sewer inlet rehabilitation. I got these 3 pictures here. It's kind of the life cycle of a problem. Oftentimes you see this little hole on the corner of a storm inlet, and that's where water goes in, and there's actually a hole in the concrete structure beneath this grate, washing the road base in, and then it graduates to something like this. That's actually a cone falling in the hole. We had multiple heavy rains in May and really exacerbated a lot of these smaller problems into bigger problems. But we were able to take care of a dozen inlets like the one you see above, where it'd be hard to do that many with our public works crew just because we don't have that many people in public works. So getting those taken care of was another big deal, kind of sprinkled throughout the village, making small improvements. You see here we did the sidewalk work, which included the plaques for the 125th anniversary. That seemed to turn out well as well. As far as storm projects, the biggest one just recently completed was the Forest Cove Outfalls project. This is where we had a storm sewer to the bottom of the ravine that had basically exploded and eroded the ravine pretty badly. And we also had an area that we had fixed about 30 years ago, but not very well. So we're able to rectify that. You see this large quantity of rock in the ravine and this little water pond ahead of it. This pile of rock is slowing the water down, holding it here. The water drops its sediment and should lift up the bottom of the ravine, and that should help lessen future erosion problems around where our storm sewers are dumping into the ravine. So that was another nice project, just recently completed. This should all grow up in the spring and look nice for years to come. We have in progress our water meter replacement program. I was very happy with the response of all of our residents. We have about 120 meters left that need to be touched yet. So out of 2,000 addresses, we had very good participation. Even with all of the pandemic, we had to pause the project and restart it. And of those 120, Several of them are vacant homes that we will get when somebody moves in. We will get the meter changed. There's probably 20 to 30 people who just were uncomfortable letting somebody in their home with the pandemic. So we will cure those once, hopefully in the spring or summer, when we can put the pandemic behind us. There are 15 to 20 that we know are problems that we're trying to work through. There was a few just data management errors. I know there was at least one where they did the house on East Blodgett, but they crossed off the house on West Blodgett of the same house number. So we're going through the final list and trying to resolve those problems. You saw that picture of that nice bright red hydrant. We are going to paint all of our hydrants here in the spring. That is under contract. Don't be fooled. They're still 80 years old, but they won't be as such an eyesore as they are today. So that will happen when the weather allows in the spring. Pump Station 37 water main relocation sounds like it's a very boring name for a project, but it's getting expensive. The state is building a new stormwater pump station on the northeast corner of Highway 41 and 176. Part of that project is a new storm sewer that they're going to pump the water through down in the Skokie Ditch. And in the future, when they do the full interchange project, they have another storm sewer they're going to put down this road. And those new storm sewers are in the way, or our water main is in the way of those new storm sewers. So because it's their road, we have to move our water main. And one of the issues here is there are many, many utilities in this right-of-way. So finding a place to dig to move our water main is a problem. Right now, our water main crosses the street kind of right by Knaus's driveway. And just to find a place to do this work, we have to extend the water main over 100 feet to the west, get underneath the street, and rehook up to our system. So that is getting expensive, and it will be expensive, but the state has put this Pump Station 37 project on their list of projects to bid and then taken it off 3 times because they don't have the funds right now. So I wasn't in a hurry to spend our money relocating our water main until the state goes ahead and actually has a contract to do their work. So we're holding a bid on that, but I expect that that's going to happen in March. They're probably going to actually let the job out and have a contractor, and we'll have to move on getting our water main adjusted. The Sylvan East Sheridan water main replacement, that is in the backyards of several homes, and that is one area that if that breaks, we have a problem. It will take us several days to fix, so we're trying to figure out a better solution to providing water to the houses on Sylvan and some of them houses on East Sheridan to get their water actually from the rear yard. A letter is going to go out to those residents fairly soon, just kind of explaining our options because it is going to involve impacts to private property. On the road side, we approved the contract for the pedestrian bridge, I think last meeting or 2 meetings ago. So they are working on getting all the paperwork for that and getting the precast ordered so they can start in the spring when IDOT approves the permit. Green Bay Road, we've been talking about for a couple of years now. Most of the plans for the street reconstruction are ready. We're just trying to get our funding. The bridge plans to redo the superstructure of the bridge are in the works. The iron decorative trusses here, they would like us to keep those in some way, so we're still talking about that and how that's impractical, but that is taking a while to get through Springfield. But at this point, it's not really holding us up because we are waiting on funding. The storm sewer studies that we're doing, this is a picture of some of the work we had done for the West Terrace, trying to find ways to overland flow water through yards if we can't put in multi-million dollars worth of storm sewer. It's an alternate plan, so we're developing that to take to residents, see if people are interested in perhaps granting easements. We're also kind of figuring out which ones we can go through yards and which ones there just isn't room and we'd have to put it in a pipe anyway. And, we've been talking about establishing a stormwater utility, so we are working with Christopher Burke, our stormwater consulting engineer, on getting better information on what that might look like. We also issued a contract to redo the Lakeland Drive lift station, sanitary sewer station. That will happen in the spring as well.
It's a riveting photo.
And yes, it's, well, That is kind of actually an important photo. That vault, you can see how small it is. The existing station has the pumps and the valves all in one vault. The new station, that it just isn't all going to fit. So that has kind of pushed the cost up on the Lakeland Drive lift station. And we originally had hoped to, next project, the Forest Cove lift station, to do both of them, but we're not going to be able to do both of them just because of the cost associated with moving those valves into a separate vault. So that project
What's
is
the
on...
diameter of that vault, Jeff?
The one at Lakeland, I think it's a 4-foot diameter vault, but I'd have to check to be sure. So the Forest Cove lift station, we have the engineering done. We just need to rebudget that in the future. I would expect, my recommendation would be that that's probably going to need to be addressed within the next 5 years, just based on its condition. But I know the Lakeland one was causing much bigger headaches for Public Works, so they're happy to have that one done now. And hopefully this one can hang on for a while until we can have that project done. We discussed the Bath and Tennis Club Road storm sewer project quite a bit back in May. That's the one that relieves flooding on Boardman Court. That is engineering done on the shelf. We may revisit that again if we would like to do that when the street is due for resurfacing, which isn't that far off. It's not in the next year or two, but that will come up, and that would be a logical time to discuss that project again. The McClory Trail lighting, that was put on hold as well. I plan to keep looking out for funding opportunities for that. We applied for a grant through Safe Routes to School. I think it was last year. We didn't get the grant, but that is a reoccurring source of funds. So we may look to see if that or some other source will help us do that project someday. There was significant coordination with IDOT on that project, and we have their blessing. So hopefully before the man who gave us the blessing retires, we'll be able to do that, so we don't have to deal with somebody else who might have a different opinion on it. The Glen Avenue footbridge rehabilitation, that probably needs to be addressed in, at least my recommendation, be in the next 2 or 3 years. There is some steel that's rusting on that bridge. It's not in a precarious position right now, but I don't want to lose track of that project. And then the Scranton Avenue underpass handrails are continuing to rust out. That isn't necessarily a hazard right now, but probably going to make that job more expensive as more of it rusts out and deteriorates in the next couple of years. So that is a pretty quick, I guess, run through of our projects. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Jeff, as a West Terrace resident, are all of the hydrants going to be on some sort of a schedule now over in the coming years for replacement? You said we've done, tried to do one on each street to ensure kind of a reliable performance. Are all of them going to be scheduled at some point?
They should be. Normally you don't do, every hydrant on a street unless you're replacing the water main on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't talked about specific water main replacement jobs. That is a priority. The North Terrace is also a priority as far as replacing water main en masse. So in the meantime, until we can, we have probably $6 to $10 million worth of water main that's all in similar condition to replace. I don't expect that we're going to be doing that in the next 5 years. So by changing these hydrants ahead of time, that's a way to, make sure that we have the safety we need on the street. And I would like to continue doing at least one per street. The one nice thing about the West Terrace is there are a lot of hydrants there. They are more closely spaced than we have in other neighborhoods, but a lot of them are still original. So we're trying to pick off ones in strategic locations that will help have a backup plan in case one of the older hydrants doesn't work.
And those were placed back when the West Terrace was built out back in the early 1900s, I would think, correct?
1920s.
1920. So they're 100 years old?
Some of those hydrants are. They weren't replaced back in, in the 60s when that was developed, the early 60s. They go back to about 1924.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
I have a question, Jeff, for you.
Yes.
We went through a presentation maybe this past, maybe a year ago, that was more on the strategic aspect of stormwater on the east side of the village, and I believe that you had presented 3 plans at that time. I don't remember the date for it, but I know that I have a PowerPoint for it. My question to you is, I know that we're going to establish a water utility at some point in time. From a global and strategic standpoint, you did not show this plan, but is this plan ready to go as well, or is there more work to be done from a planning standpoint?
So, the big backbone of our storm system will be the replacement of a new pipe from the viaduct to Lake Michigan, and we have that plan as far as where it is. We haven't done, engineering, we call phase 2 plans, ready to bid on that. We've been looking for funding sources. The county has a pot of money that we've been talking to them about a way to try to at least get some of it to start that project. So we have, the point of the larger study that you're referring to was to at least define what our projects are, so that when we have funding opportunities or we want to move forward, we know where the pipes need to be and how big they need to be. And that process is completed. Now it's just a matter of what projects we want to do and how we're going to fund them.
Thank you.
I had a quick question, Jeff, about the pump station 37, about moving the water mains.
Yes.
Do we have an estimated cost on that, and is that in our current budget? So if we had to move on that relatively quickly, would we be able to?
We had a budget, I believe, of $50,000. That's going to cost more than that as we've gotten more information from the state as far as how much work we have to do. It could be triple that to about 150. The water meter project has come in under budget.
Okay.
So if needed, I think we would, because we bonded money for water improvements, which included the meters. My discussions with finance would be we'd probably use some of the savings from the water meter project to fund that relocation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff?
I might have another question, and I might not have heard the. I was trying to listen very attentively regarding East Terrace. North Terrace with the water. You had a graphic that was absolutely great to show the flow of water and the where pipes are needed and where overland water could actually be done between the houses. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a timing for that project?
Don't, and now I see an error in the slide. Actually, this is the East Terrace Overland Flow Study. I see I wrote in west.
I'm a little confused. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I wrote it incorrectly here. There is no timing on this right now. We were trying to see if there are, we have through our overall study, we looked at what would these storm sewers have to be if we just piped it, and that cost was in excess, I think, of $4 million. But if we did that, we would run a larger pipe to the viaduct. But until we have a larger pipe from the viaduct to the lake, that's not going to help us. So it all kind of depends on when we could put in the backbone of the system, which is going east.
We could actually raise money by renting kayaks under the viaduct too.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jeff?
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jeff, very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Drew, did you say you had a couple of more points?
Yes, 2, thank you. I wanted to let the board know and be aware that the village has had, and remind them, the village has so much success with the village's farmers market steering committee, or that's been advising me over the years, and how the market is run, the type of vendors and so forth. And one of the things I've learned over the years is try not to get involved, or just get involved as little as possible and let Pony and his team do his thing. In a similar pathway, and hopefully to realize similar successes, I put together a steering committee for the village's branding program, and village clerk Megan Michaels part of that group, amongst many other professionals in town with marketing and advertising experience. We were very blessed to have a number of professionals in our community that are willing to help out and give me and consequently everybody else guidance on how and where we take the village's branding program. And actually, work is getting underway tomorrow evening. We have our first meeting tomorrow, and hopefully of many more, and get some good ideas in advance of our upcoming budget conversations, and put together a plan and share with you all. So it's exciting. It's one of the fun things we get to do, or at least I think it's fun, and looking forward to doing that and working with residents on that plan. And happy to take any questions if there are any on that. If there's not, I do have one more item. Okay.
Okay.
The last item I would share is, again, assuming, President O'Hara, you're going to cover It's a Wonderful Life to some degree?
I will.
Okay.
What I know of it, if you have anything to add, please.
I will. The one thing I wanted to add is, sometimes some of the things we do here at the village are not warmly received, as, for example, the conversation earlier tonight on my report. But sometimes, certainly village frontline staff has interactions with our residents and leaves a very good impression with them. Glenn, are you prepared to play that message?
Hey, Jake. Hi, it's Mark Tupper. Hope you're well. Hope your family's well. I wanted to thank you for sending Tony over on Friday, and he actually, as promised, came back yesterday to kind of investigate our D valve, or whatever you call it, situation. He's a terrific young man, incredible work ethic, great attitude, and very personable. And he worked hard. Probably all in was at least an hour between Friday and yesterday, and he was just so pleasant. And I just wanted to share that with you. I did try to give him a tip. He would not accept it. I offered it again. He still would not accept it. But I wanted to tell you that if this is any indication of the caliber of people we have working at the village, I already know your caliber and your character, which is extraordinary. It's pretty impressive. I just wanted to share that with you. I wish you and your family all the best for this holiday season. Thanks again, Jake. Bye.
So that was, that was directed to Jake and one of his team members, and who has been a great add to our organization, and just an example of the people working here, and the work they do, and the manner and ethical standards in which they do it. I mean, I think I called up and I asked Mr. Tupper if it was okay if I played that message for him, trying to offer him a tip. But that happens, and we have residents that know good quality work and want to share that with our members. And I think it's that's a great example, and it was one that highlighted the Public Works Department that we don't necessarily always hear, and you guys don't always hear those types of compliments. And I wanted to share them just so you know that sometimes there is good news, and maybe more often than you thought, but I wanted to share that, and I wanted to say kudos to Jake and his crew.
Okay. Yes. I think that speaks volumes for the people that work for the village, and they are appreciated. We thank them for their work. Is there anything else that you have, Drew?
No, just wishing everybody a happy and safe holiday season.
Yeah, that's the key. Village attorney's report.
Nothing else to report tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Village President's report. Again, I come to you requesting an extension of the Village President's declaration of civil emergency, which I have come to you every meeting of the Village Board since March 18th. So could I possibly have a motion for this extension?
The next board meeting.
Until the next board meeting, of course. Do I have that? Did I hear something, or?
Trustee Dewart. Trustee Dewart.
Thank you, Mr. Dewart. I appreciate that.
Second.
Second, anyone? Second. Okay, thank you. Carlo? All righty. Could there be a roll call, please?
Trustee Meyer.
You're muted, Bill.
Oh, sorry, aye.
Trustee
Aye.
Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Stewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of It's a Wonderful Life, which was a week ago Saturday, actually it was really quite successful. A little different approach, a little different tone than we've had in the past, obviously due to the COVID. Great help and support from the library with their panels of a children's story as you would go around the block and all that, which I thought was very clever. The help of the chamber, the merchants who gave hot chocolate or hot cider. There were quite a few people out during the day, which was great. The weather was good. It cooperated. At 5 o'clock, the lights were turned on. We did not publicize it very much. We just said it was happening. There was no ceremony, but people did congregate. And we did have a young 4-year-old gentleman who graciously volunteered to pull the switch. Okay? And he was a great kid. So we had that, and as you can see, the lights up. So in spite of the COVID, the holiday spirit does continue in Lake Bluff, which we're grateful for. I have one error to correct. Earlier, I was talking about the fact that Lake Bluff and the Park District are not coterminous, and I used the wrong stats, which is, as somebody else was talking later, I remembered I did. Actually, there are about 22 households within the village limits of Lake Bluff and 700 households in the unincorporated areas. So it's about a 25% of households that live outside the village limits. So again, as we were talking about, working with the Park District has, made some requests, we have to be cognizant of the fact that any kind of improvements or stuff or monies that the village would possibly ever consider, to some, it may be considered to be a double tax or that. So that was just, I just wanted to get the proper figures out. So I apologize for saying the incorrect ones a little earlier. All right, so we will now move on to the acceptance of the correspondence for the consent agenda, which is the acceptance of the correspondence, which also includes the second reading of an ordinance granting special use permit for 2 Paws Up dog training, and also second reading of an ordinance amending the Lake Bluff zoning regulations relating to subterranean garages and structures. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Ms. Markey. And do I have new glasses? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Toll. All right. Roll call, please.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Stewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
All right, we have now gone to item number 14, which is an ordinance levying property taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2020 and ending April 30th, 2021 for the village of Lake Bluff. This would be a second reading approval of the ordinance. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved, thank you, by Ms. Markey. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Toll. Pursuant to state laws, on or before the last Tuesday in December, the village must file with the county clerk an ordinance requesting a property tax to be levied on all taxable property within the village. After review of levy estimates and financial projections as presented by staff, the Finance Committee recommends the village freeze the village portion of the extension to the same amount as in the year 2019. The 2020 levy amount of $3,461,807 represents no increase over the 2019 property tax extension. The Lake Bluff Public Library Board has requested a property tax levy $1,014,510 for the year 2020, which is a 2.713% increase over the previous year. The total levy amount of $4,476,317 is in compliance with the Property Tax Limitation Act and the Truth in Taxation Act, so it's not required for this levy. The village board approved the first reading at its November 23rd meeting. Are there any comments by the trustees? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Inkeman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
All right, we are now going to item number 15, which is an ordinance abating 2020 property taxes levied for general obligation debt series 2019 and 2019A bonds of the Village of Lake Bluff. This again would be second reading approval. Do I have a motion, please?
I was just noting on agenda item 15, it says first reading.
On mine, it says second reading. It should be first reading.
Under the subject, I'm sorry, I apologize. Under
Yeah.
the subject, it says first reading, but under the action requested, it does say second reading.
Yes, it does. Let's make sure this is second reading.
Yes,
Drew?
for certain.
Okay, all right. Okay, yes, what I thought. Okay, second reading, all right. Do I, thank you for pointing that out, Barbara. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Ankerman. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Toll. Village currently has refunded bond series 2012, 2019, and 2019A general obligation bonds outstanding. Refunding bond series 2012 final payment will be made in FY 2021. Therefore, it is excluded. Pursuant to ordinances 2019-18 and 2019-26, the county clerk is required to extend a property tax levy in an amount sufficient to pay the interest and principal on the bonds. In the past, the village has abated the annual property tax levy because the bond ordinances directing extension of the annual property tax levy were filed with the county clerk. An ordinance is required to abate, not levy, the property tax for these bonds. The finance director determined that the Waterworks Fund has the amount necessary to transfer to the Waterworks Bond and interest account for principal and interest payments on the 2019 general obligation bonds and the 2019A refunding bonds. Final payment for the 2012 refunding bond principal and interest will be made in FY 2021, paid by general fund revenues. The village board approved the first reading of this ordinance at its November 23rd meeting. Any questions by the trustees? Comments? Excuse me, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Agenda item number 16, which is a public hearing to consider amendments to the village's plan of operation and governance for its electricity aggregation program. This is a second of two hearings. All right, as we will conduct, this is a public hearing. So this is the first of two agenda items concerning changes to the village's electrical aggregation program. In March 2012, following a successful referendum, the Board of Trustees established an opt-out electrical aggregation program. As you may recall, electrical aggregation allows the village to select an alternate supplier for the village's residential and small commercial electricity customers. For the past several years, the village has cooperated with the municipalities of Deerfield, Glencoe, Highland Park, Lake Forest, Northbrook, Park Ridge, and Skokie to cooperatively solicit proposals as the North Shore Electricity Aggregation Consortium. Members of its acronym is NSEINSEC. Use their aggregation authority to enter in agreements in 2012, 2015, and 2016, and 2017. with alternate suppliers, and by doing so, generated cost savings. However, the aggregation ended in 2017 when cost savings were no longer achievable. Since 2017, members of the consortium have monitored the market and have engaged in other energy policy efforts, including the Elgin Solar Facility, and the Village's Community Solar Program. The consortium members have developed a new aggregation model that generates savings by moving some, but not all, residents to an alternate provider. The generated savings can then be used as a cash pool by the municipality for other purposes. The new model assumes that these funds would be used to purchase renewable energy credits that effectively increases the community's use of renewable resources to fulfill energy demands. Some consortium municipalities are considering directing these funds to sustainability programs or other initiatives. In order to engage in this new aggregation effort, the village must amend its aggregation plan of operation and governance, as well as the intergovernmental agreement among the members of the consortium. Amending the plan of operation requires 2 consecutive public hearings before adoption. This is the second. Following adoption of the POGO amendments, the consortium will conduct a request for proposals, and the village will be able to consider accepting the winning proposal in the first quarter of 2021. While staff is anticipating bringing intergovernmental agreement amendments for board action in December, these have been delayed as the consortium is in discussions with Park Ridge to determine if they wish to continue participating as a member of the consortium. If Park Ridge withdraw, further amendments would be necessary. The village board should conduct and close the public hearing before, taking action on the next agenda item, which is the resolution amending the village's plan of operation and government. All right, any questions concerning this public hearing? All right.
I have a really quick question.
Sure.
Drew or Glenn, why would a community opt out of this plan? Like, why is Park Ridge thinking about
Park Ridge?
Yeah.
Park Ridge. Why are they thinking about?
I think generally some of the more recent initiatives, or I'll say anything really post the original aggregation effort, that have been, most of those activities have been using or involving the communities of Deerfield, Glencoe, Highland Park, Lake Forest, Northbrook, and Skokie, and Park Ridge really hasn't participated in those subsequent activities. And by continuing to be a member of the NSEAC, they're also subject to paying for sharing in the cost of any legal fees or other expertise. And so the idea, if they're not going to participate in some of these other more current programs, then they don't want to bear those costs. And I don't know if I missed anything, Glenn.
That sums it up.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So can you outline or compare the village has also supported the Elgin Solar proposal. If are those of us who have elected to pursue that would not be available to be participants in the consortium, would not be in the some but not all, we would be the not all side of the residents and village who would be available to pursue that. So
correct.
Is there and there's a bit of an incompatibility here, I guess, right?
Yes. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or are you just saying they're mutually exclusive events in terms of participation?
Yes, it sounds. Yeah, I think that's what I'm getting toward. My participation in that removes me as a potential candidate to support the village consortium activities.
That's correct. I'd emphasize that our community solar program, which I'd also mention, there's Village Hall, our village facilities are on that Elgin solar plant. Actually, none of your access, if you subscribe as an individual to our community solar program, those are actually different plants. But that's we expect, and we're seeing that'll be a pretty small number of village residents. So for right now, at this current moment, that's a misstatement. As of a week ago, we had 38 accounts on the wait list, 11 enrollments sent out, and 4 people actually put onto a community solar facility. So,
Okay.
And that's in line with our expectations. We figured somewhere between, optimistically, 2 to 3% of the village would end up on the wait list, and that's 2% right there as far as our residential accounts. So
Then there are other solar programs like the one sponsored by ComEd and Exelon. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. Starts with a C, but
Constellation.
Those folks, Constellation. Thank you. Those participants would be excluded from being part of the program here as well. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
So procedurally, Madam President, you can just declare the public hearing closed.
Just say close the public hearing, as I understand it, correct?
And you can, yep.
All right. All right. So we now are to a resolution approving an amended plan of operation and governance for the electricity aggregation program. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Dort, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Charlot. This is the second of 2 agenda items concerning changes to the village's electrical aggregation program. In March 2012, I think all right, I'm going to not.
It's the same memo.
All of this because
Yeah.
Same memo. Yes, thank you. So unless someone has any questions regarding that, I'll open it up for discussion. This is the resolution. Does anybody have any questions regarding the resolution to the public hearing that we just held previously? All right, hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherla.
Aye.
All right, we're now having a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Lauterbach and Amen. Amen or Amen? All
Amen,
right,
yeah.
this is Amen. Okay, so could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ankerman. And do I have a second?
So, second.
Ms. Markey. Finance Department is responsible for coordinating the financial activities of the village, including maintaining the central accounting system and related financial controls, managing revenue collections, preparing property tax levies, controlling expenditures, management and investments of funds, and establishing and maintaining proper internal controls to safeguard village assets. In 2008, the village created the Assistant Finance Director position to assume part of these responsibilities, including supporting a range of accounting tasks related to the daily and monthly activities in the general ledger, including various account and bank reconciliations, preparation of financial reports, assisting with the annual audit and budgeting process, and coordination of employee benefits. As you may recall, Assistant Finance Director Marlene Schreibel resigned in July to take the Village Park Finance Director's position. Since that time, the accounting firm of Lauterbach and Amen have performed most of these duties on an interim basis. Additionally, they have evaluated many of the village's financial processes and developed certain efficiencies. Now, rather than filling the vacancy, village staff recommends that L&A continue providing these accounting services for the next 24 months. Operationally outsourcing certain accounting responsibilities provide better segregation of duties and allows the village to utilize the firm's expertise to help improve our process. Economically, outsourcing this role is less expensive than an in-house employee, saving resources to recruit and train while reducing overall payroll taxes, salaries, insurance, pension, and time off expenses. Our review of the 10 comparable local governments historically utilized by the village for compensation studies reveal that the average salary for an assistant finance director is $103,605 before health insurance, tax, and pension benefits of $38,940 in addition, which will yield a total average salary of $142,545. If the village were to reduce the responsibility of the position to that of an accountant, the average municipal accountant salary is $88,600 plus $36,229 for village benefits totaling $124,829. As a part of their proposed scope of work, LNA will provide access to various employees ranging from staff accountant, accounting manager, to firm partner, depending on our needs. Additionally, the engagement proposal includes the cost of year-end audit prep, fixed access to depreciation tracking, both of which were work efforts performed for separate costs in years past in the amount of $4,000 to $6,000. In total, the annual cost of the engagement would be $80,000 for the first year and a 3% increase for year 2, which is about $62,000 less than the potential cost of hiring an assistant financial director and $44,000 less than hiring an accountant. Are there any comments, questions to the administration, to Drew, by the trustees?
Well, I think my first comment will be a thank you, in that these are the kind of responsible inquiries and responsible outsourcing that I think is very important. So a lot of credit to Drew and to the administration for giving the thought to this situation and addressing the vacancy with an outsourcing. The only other comment I have is, looking at a professional services agreement and indeed being in a type of business like that myself, a 3% year 2 increase is a little prodigious, particularly given that runs about 2% what the inflation rate is in the United States of America. So I know I'm talking in the large scheme of things, not a whole lot of money, but I'd be a little happier if that was a 1.5% increase year 2 rather than 3%. But again, thank you, Drew, and credit to you and staff.
Well, I start with Bettina on sharing, and certainly actually collecting 98% of that. It was this was her initiative. She put this together. One of the things that we've talked about organizationally here, trying not to squeeze the dry sponge and have bad morale and so forth. But Bettina came to me with this concept, and I was her cheerleader. And so this is something she put together. As far as the 3%, we pushed back a little bit on that as late as Friday with them on that. But I think it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but given that they are rolling in there about twice that or 3 times that even, with some fees for services that they're already providing us, we didn't push super hard back on that, and that's kind of where we left it. And hopefully within 18 to 24 months, when this gets revisited, that we have a chance to talk about what future out year increases would be. Because you're right, Trustee Meyer, that at some point these lines will intersect, and we'd have to look hard at bringing it back in house, or perhaps revisiting this if these increases year on 3%, 4%, it catches up. We'd want to avoid that. But the good news is, given the differentials, it would take a while to get to there.
Okay, anyone else have anything that they might want to add to this? All right, could we have a roll call vote on this?
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Charlo.
Aye.
Trustee Dewar.
Aye.
Do a trustees report. Any trustees have anything they would like to report on this evening? Stuart, did you have anything?
Yes, I thought Trustee Charlot was going to. He took a deeper breath than I did first.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, thank you. No report from my end. Thank you.
Oh, okay. No, I was given that this is our concluding meeting for December. On behalf of the Lake Bluff 125th Committee, which is perhaps the 125th plus one committee, for the record, just to share that as the committee prepares its calendar for next year, I wanted to assure everyone that virtually all of the great activities that we had planned for 2020 will be extended into 2021. The Park District will be kicking off right after the first year with a variety of activities for us. And we'll have a number of things to, hopefully, we've got fingers crossed that we can involve everyone in the village in during the spring and summer months. And we will expect to cap off the year with the birthday party, the 125 plus one birthday party in September. Again, planning fireworks and music and a lot of fun for everyone. And then at the end of October, we will be having a ghost walk again. And the Ghost Walk will be a cooperative venture between the museum and the 125 committee. So look forward to a whole lot of fun, we hope, next year, and a chance for young and old to really get and continue to keep involved in village activities. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yes, it will be. And yes, it will all come true. We're going to be able to do this. Any other trustee have anything they might want to add? All right. If not, we have nothing for executive session. And before we adjourn, I'd like to wish everybody a very safe and happy holiday season. Things may be a little bit different, but I know that your families, everyone's families will get together, and I hope that everyone enjoys this season, and that goes for our entire community. So with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Byer, do I have a second?
Second.
A second, Mr. Toll. All right. I don't think we'll have to call that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Night, everybody. Thank you all very much.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays. Stay safe.
Happy holidays.